Over the past couple years, I've worked really hard to create a life that my younger self would be proud of. I moved away from doing what other people wanted for me and instead started asking myself what I wanted to be doing with my life. This wasn't easy. There was a lot of times where I couldn't untangle my own wants and needs from those of the people I grew up with and spent the most time around, but I've slowly learned my body and mind's signals. When something isn't right for me, my body tells me, though it's definitely taken some time to get to a point where I listen to it. Okay, so really fun thing just happened. I actually already filmed this clip, but rookie mistake that I have actually never done before is I forgot to turn on my microphone. And because it's plugged in, I guess, the camera itself didn't pick up any audio. So we're filming this again. So these notebooks, you will have seen these, I think quite a few videos ago now, because I left them on my desk because I just didn't know what to do with them. I didn't know how to finish them off. And as I was filming the very first clip for this, like where I was like picking them up and carrying them off, I was looking at my stamps and I realized that I already had a stamp that would be perfect for the cover. And I thought I was gonna leave them blank, but it says just a note and it fits the purpose exactly. And now I will tell you what that purpose is. So a theme in my videos recently has been spending less time on my phone. And because of the way my brain works, I have a lot of things going on up here at all times, and it's easier for me if I can get them out of my brain and not have to think about them. So I have various notes apps in my phone that all have different lists in them and have different purposes. And a lot of the time I find that when a thought comes into my head, I'll pick up my phone and write it down just in my general notes app, and then I end up like moving it around to the proper place afterward. But that can be a lot of work, and I don't necessarily want to keep picking up my phone every time I have a thought. And so that is where these little things come in. And you might be asking, Catherine, why didn't you just get one single notebook instead of 20 small notebooks? And there's a couple reasons for that. The first one being that I wanted something really small that I could easily just slide into my pocket and carry it around with a pen, so that instead of like going to pick up my phone to write something down, I could just pull this out of my pocket and write it down there. The second reason is that I'm going to be writing the date, like the date range that I wrote in the notebook. I think it would be really cute to have a stack of these on my bookshelf in order, and so I can look back and like look at what I was thinking and what I was writing about and all that. And third, a lot of the time when I write something down in my general notes app, I get back to it like a day or two later and it's like, I don't actually need to remember this or do this, and so I delete it. And what I'd rather do is like, I just write everything down in this notebook as it comes to me, and then maybe like once every few days or once a week, I can transfer the important things into my notes apps in my phone. This might sound needlessly complicated to you, and you know what, it might be, actually. I don't know yet. I've never done this before, so it is an experiment, much like everything that I do is. I'm hoping it'll work out because I really like the idea of just having a chronological order of notebooks just hanging out on my bookshelf of things that I was thinking about, and I can look at the dates and see like when I was thinking about them and like what I was writing about and all that. I had thought that I might decorate these even more just because I have so many stamps now that I've been collecting, but I think I'm happy with the just a note on the cover and then the this book belongs to inside, and then I'll write the date down below that. But yeah, I was thinking like, oh, maybe I'll put some washi tape on the spine, maybe I'll add some stickers or some more stamps, but I think I like them simple like this. Now I am going to show you the second thing, the thing I unwrapped at the very beginning of this video, but right now I need to start a loaf of bread because I've been dreaming of homemade bread for like a month now and I have not made it. And so we're going to get that started so that I can have that rising while I'm doing other stuff today. Now, I don't know if I've ever shared this with you before, but I've historically struggled quite a bit with my identity. Growing up, who I was as a person was often dictated by whoever I spent the most time with. It wasn't on purpose, I just didn't have any solid sense of self. I think this is easy for kids and teenagers to slip into, especially to take on the qualities and traits of the people they spend the most time with. But the problems start when you begin to realize that how you're living your life isn't in line with your values or what you envisioned for yourself in the past. This could be for any number of reasons, one of which I'm currently exploring and will hopefully have more to say about sometime in the near future. But for now, let's just say I'm a lot more solid in my footing than I was when I was younger. The great thing is, I'm finally at a point where I know who I am as a person. I know what I like and what I want to do with my time and what I want to do for work. I know how certain things make me feel, and I know which things I dislike and can safely avoid, hopefully for the rest of my life. And while I used to then try these things again, the things that I didn't like, to make someone else happy, I no longer do this. If I know I don't want to engage with something, I am not going to. This may sound a bit rigid to you, but I think it comes from a place of being so easily swayed in the past. Plus, I greatly dislike when you say no to someone in any shape or form, and they continue to push you to do something. That is a big nope from me, friends. To give you a bit of a silly example, I know I hate eating mushrooms with a burning passion, and a lot of people have tried to get me to eat them. But I'm 32 years old. I've been trying and hating mushrooms all of my life, and I'm quite happy to never eat them again. Okay, so while my bread is rising, there's one more thing I wanted to show you today, which is I finally got my author copy of my poetry book, which I am so happy about. If you watched my video, I think like back in February, is where I introduced the book and talked about it, and I had a proof copy, so it had this big ugly thing that said proof across it. But I think I ordered my author copy around that time, and it just came maybe like 5 or 6 days ago. Not sure why it took so long, but that's okay. But it's so exciting to have just a regular plain copy of this. And as I mentioned in that video, I did everything myself. I did the layout, the cover, the editing, everything, because I have experience in it. I've done it professionally before, and I just enjoy doing it. And a lot of the time in the past with creative projects, not books necessarily, but creative projects in general, I've looked at it after and I've been like, oh, I wish I could have done this differently, or I would have changed that. But interestingly enough, with this book, there's nothing I would change about it. I love the size that I chose. I love the plain cover. I love the fonts that I chose for it. I'm just really, really happy with how it turned out. And I do have another poetry book. I have a lot of poems, and I have another poetry book that is almost done being edited. And now that this is out in the world, I think I can start figuring out what the layout of that one is going to be. And then I'll give it another edit before I finish it. The only problem is that with the next one, I don't have any idea of what I want the cover to look like. So with this one, because it's called Salt Bones, it was very much in my head that it was going to be like ocean themed from the beginning. Interestingly enough, there's a poem right at the beginning of the book called Salt Bones. I actually didn't have that poem in here when I submitted this to a publisher the first time, which if you want to hear what happened with that, you can watch the previous video sometime in February. But it was when I was editing it again for publishing myself that I was like, you know, because it's called Salt Bones, maybe I should have a poem called Salt Bones. So if you read this, it's just like a little bit of interesting lore, is that most of the other poems were already there, but Salt Bones was added at the very last minute, like written and added at the very last point it could be added. Yeah, flipping through this now, it's very exciting to see it all in print and seeing these poems in their final form, because a lot of these poems went through I don't know how many changes. I don't think that my next poetry book will be like that, because a lot of these poems I wrote like, oh my gosh, forever ago, like 2017, 2018. But the poems in my new book are from like 2022 onward, I would say. So yeah, just so many interesting things about putting out my first book and doing it all myself. And again, if you want to hear more about that, you can watch the previous video. But all in all, I'm just really thrilled with how this looks and how it turned out. And now I have my own little copy that I can just read from whenever I want. I'm also thinking, because I see some other poets doing little readings of their poems from their books online, and I kind of want to do that. I don't know, I've never been much of a like reading in front of people performing type, which you probably would not tell from these videos. I think I mentioned that last week, that I'm a lot more talkative, I'm a lot more outgoing on these videos than I am in person. Let me know if that's something you think I should do. Should I do a series of like short form videos where I'm reading poems from my poetry book? Now that I'm saying that, when I had my Patreon active, my favorite part of that was sharing my poems and recording them. I had like audio files of me reading my poems on Patreon, which I might start again at some point. If I do Patreon again, I need to nail down exactly what I want it to be before I start it up again. I have like ideas, but I keep changing my mind about things. So I want to be very, very sure of what I'm adding on Patreon before I go back to that. But if I'm going to, I think that reading poems for you guys is going to be like top of the list, because that was my absolute favorite part of it. Anyway, enough rambling. I'm just really, really excited that this is here. I think that my bread is still going to be rising for a little bit of time now. And while I really don't need to go thrifting, now that I have that orange rug that I showed you last week, I am really wanting to look for another one, just like where I'm standing in the kitchen, which I know rugs in the kitchen, kind of weird. But then there's also this big empty space. Here, I'll show you actually. There's this big empty space in the living room, and I don't love this floor. So to cover it up with another rug like this, that would be like ideal, I would say. And hopefully I can refrain from buying any more books or clothes or anything else I don't need. We're there for rugs. Okay, thrift run was a success. Not in the sense that I found a carpet or two, more so in the fact that I found some cool items and I also didn't buy any clothing, which for me is a success. So first of all, anytime I find any fabric that is any color of gingham, I always buy it. I prefer the smaller squares, but I can live with this because it's a beautiful green. I believe it is some sort of tablecloth. Yeah. Oh no, okay. My problem is that I buy a piece of fabric and I'm like, okay, I could turn this into shorts or maybe like a skirt or a dress. And then sometimes I get it home and I realize that I really like it for what it was made for. And this is an oval tablecloth and I have a feeling that it'll fit perfectly on our table. I don't know if I want a tablecloth, so I'll wash it and I'll think about it. This is just a nice butter yellow water bottle. It doesn't have a straw, but I have a bunch of straws myself. I have a bunch of water bottles in the cupboard that are not exactly what I wanted, and it was one of those things where it was like close enough, so I got it. But I've been looking for a nice big water bottle that has a straw in it, and this is basically perfect. It just needs a bit of a wash and then it'll be good. These two stamps. I'm collecting stamps now. I don't even know what I'm going to use most of these for, but I just am really enjoying finding stamps that are cute. This one is massive, and it's another one of those like frames of flowers. I get no idea what I'll use it for, but it's adorable. And then you can't quite see this one, but it's sunflowers and like periwinkles. Hold on. There we go. But yeah, adorable. Don't know what it'll be used for. Love it. Doesn't matter. This one is very interesting to me. I don't know how much I will enjoy the content. I'm hoping I will. I more so bought it because it is like an exact ripoff of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and I loved that book. And like everything about it, from like the colors and the fonts to it's about writing, and from like the way the book is laid out, if you've seen The Artist's Way, you'll know that all of the text is like exactly like this. Like this body part is right here with little quotes on the side. So like it is literally the same book, just like possibly different content, question mark. I think it's formatted in the same way of like offering practical writing advice and then having some like personal anecdotes and like details from other people. The only thing that I'm seeing different is like the header text within the book itself, which is not very much considering. I don't know, I'm interested to see what it's like. It was written by someone with a PhD, is interesting to me. I don't know why I didn't expect that. Anyway, I'm curious to see what this will be like. Hopefully it's good. If not, I can donate it again. And so this final thing is not from a thrift store. It is from a used bookstore in town. So this series by Ellie Griffiths, whose name I have a really hard time saying for some reason, she wrote a mystery series, and the main protagonist is an archaeologist. And fun Catherine fact, when I was a kid, I wanted so badly to be both an archaeologist and a librarian. I am 99.9% sure that's because I watched the Mummy movies as a kid and I loved them. Anyway, I read this series back in, I want to say 2021 or 2022. One of my mom's patients, either the patient or the family, my mom's a nurse, gave my mom the first 8 books in the series. So we've just had those around. And I wanted to complete the set because I'm starting to read it again. And in the last like 2 weeks, like when I went in there, they had about 5 of the books I was looking for. And since then I've got another 2 or 3. So I only have 2 more books to collect and then the series is complete. I'm only on book 2 right now, so I'm pretty sure that I'll get those other 2 books before I even get to them, because I think they're number 12 and 15 that I'm missing now. Anyway, great haul. Very happy about that. I need to make my bread because I looked at it and this is a new recipe for me. I think that it has filled almost the entire bowl that it was in. So it looks like I'll be making 2 loaves, but I'm gonna do that right now before I work in the garden. But yeah, I wanna get that done before it gets any bigger. It's ridiculous right now. Okay, let's bake some bread. To be perfectly honest, and without being too morbid, my younger self never actually thought we'd get to this point in life. And so while I spent the last couple years trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted, I had the gift of a clean slate. There were really no expectations of who I was going to be at this point in my life, and so I was free to go all the way back to my childhood and draw parts of who I was then into who I am now. When I was a kid, my favorite things to do were read, write, make art, and spend time outdoors. And guess what I spend most of my free time doing now? I'm also lucky in that I'm a pretty whimsical person by nature, so it wasn't too hard to regain the wonder that I had as a child either. I'm the kind of person who, as a child, would stare at a bug, look at the intricate patterns on its back, or notice how a leaf's veins bisect and meet up again. And it goes without saying that I was the kid lying in the field, staring up at the clouds any chance I got, something I still try to do regularly now. And so while I still do get overwhelmed sometimes or find myself slipping back into living my life for other people in some ways, I do have a solid anchor of identity to return to again and again. In a way, this has been a lifeline, pulling me back to solid ground anytime I begin slipping into how I lived before. All this to say, I'm so happy with the way my life is going, and I know my younger self would be proud of who we are today. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.